Pay close attention, because there are moments in life that arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary hours, only to reveal later that they mark the beginning of an entirely new chapter. What is unfolding right now carries that kind of weight. Many people will move through this period without recognizing it for what it truly is, and by the time they realize something extraordinary passed through their lives, the opportunity will already be gone. Yet for those who are paying attention, for those who can sense that something unusual is stirring beneath the surface of their emotions, this moment may become impossible to forget. On June 16th, a rare celestial harmony takes shape as Venus and Neptune form an exact trine while positioned in Leo and Aries, two of the zodiac's most dynamic fire signs. Within astrological circles, this alignment is often associated with what many describe as a soulmate portal. That phrase may sound symbolic, but the energetic implications behind it are treated as very real. It represents a temporary opening, a unique interval in which connections, emotions, and encounters that have felt distant or unreachable may suddenly find a path into your experience. Yet there is an important detail that receives far less attention than it deserves. This alignment does not exist in isolation. It sits between other significant planetary movements, creating a larger energetic landscape that is far more complex than it first appears. Without understanding the influences surrounding this portal, what could become one of the most inspiring emotional experiences of the year may instead feel confusing, overwhelming, or difficult to interpret. If you have recently noticed a strange sensation lingering within you, a feeling that seems to live somewhere deep in your chest, not quite sadness, not exactly loneliness, and yet impossible to dismiss, there is a reason for it. Perhaps it arrives unexpectedly during quiet moments. Perhaps it appears while listening to music, looking out a window, or thinking about the future. Whatever form it takes, it is not random. And before this message is over, the source of that feeling will become clearer. To understand why, you first need to see the larger picture, because this week is not simply another interesting astrological period. It may become one of the defining chapters for love, intimacy, and human connection throughout the entire year of 2026. The scale of what is occurring is difficult to overstate. At this very moment, three of the slowest and most influential outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, have all entered new zodiac signs. What makes this extraordinary is not merely that each shift has occurred, but that all three transitions are happening within the same broader period. Configurations of this magnitude emerge only rarely, roughly once every 500 years. The last time a pattern remotely comparable unfolded, humanity was living in a vastly different world. Entire societies transformed under similar cosmic conditions. Systems emerged, collapsed, and reinvented themselves. Uranus has moved into Gemini, bringing profound changes to communication, thought patterns, learning, and the ways people establish connections with one another. Pluto continues its journey through Aquarius, relentlessly dismantling outdated structures of influence while laying foundations for entirely new collective systems. Meanwhile, Neptune entered Aries back in January, initiating a shift that reverberated through the collective consciousness in ways many people sensed long before they could explain them. Together, these planetary movements have quietly created what astrologers refer to as a minor grand trine, a powerful triangular formation that has been operating in the background for months. Even if you know nothing about astrology, chances are you have felt its presence. There has been a growing sense that life is accelerating, that events are unfolding faster than expected, that familiar realities are changing before you have time to adjust. Many people describe feeling as though something immense is approaching, something they cannot fully see, but somehow know is there. That sensation is not accidental. It reflects the larger energetic pattern that has been building beneath everyday life. What changes everything today is the arrival of Venus into that configuration. Venus becomes the activating force, the personal key that unlocks the potential contained within this rare alignment. Instead of operating only at a collective level, the energy becomes intimate, emotional, and deeply human. It moves directly into the territory of relationships, attraction, vulnerability, affection, and the longing to be understood. This is what separates June 16th from countless other romantic transits. Venus is not merely creating a pleasant influence, she is linking individual emotional experiences to a transformation that reaches far beyond any single person. In a sense, the evolution of love itself becomes intertwined with the larger changes humanity is experiencing. And that brings us back to the feeling many of you have been carrying. That unexplained ache, that persistent pull inside your heart, has a story behind it. The process began on June 13th, when Venus entered Leo. The moment that transition occurred, something subtle started moving within countless people. It may not have registered consciously at first. You may have continued your daily routines without recognizing anything unusual. Yet beneath the surface, your emotional landscape began to shift. Suddenly, there was a desire for something difficult to describe. Not merely romance, not simply attention or companionship. The longing reached deeper than that. It pointed toward a connection capable of seeing the parts of you that rarely receive acknowledgement. It reflected a yearning for a bond that feels familiar on a soul level, as though it reconnects you with a forgotten version of yourself. As the days unfolded, the experience may have become even more curious. Perhaps someone from your distant past entered your thoughts without warning. Perhaps a familiar song carried unexpected emotional weight. Perhaps you caught your reflection and experienced a brief moment of disorientation. Not because your appearance had changed, but because your inner world suddenly felt different. These experiences are closely connected to the influence of Venus in Leo. Leo is governed by the Sun, and its symbolism reaches directly into the heart. It speaks to identity, self-expression, personal radiance, and the creative essence that makes you uniquely who you are. As this energy continues to unfold, it begins revealing truths that have been waiting beneath the surface, preparing you for what comes next. What makes the current passage of time feel so different is that the force moving beneath your experiences is no longer willing to negotiate with the parts of you that have accepted less than you deserve. For a very long time, subtle signals may have appeared in the background of your life, gentle nudges encouraging growth, quiet invitations urging you to trust yourself more deeply. But now, the tone has changed. The message arriving through these celestial movements is louder, clearer, and impossible to ignore. As Venus continues traveling through Leo, a profound awakening begins unfolding within the heart. This energy is not concerned with chasing approval, proving your worth, or waiting endlessly for someone else to recognize your value. Instead, it illuminates a powerful truth that many people spend years trying to discover. Real love cannot require you to become smaller in order to receive it. Real connection cannot ask you to abandon essential pieces of yourself for the comfort of another person. Venus in Leo carries the energy of dignity, self-respect, and inner sovereignty. It reminds you that your heart was never meant to survive on scraps of affection or inconsistent attention. Deep within your awareness, a realization begins taking root. You start recognizing that relationships built upon uncertainty, emotional distance, or constant compromise can no longer satisfy the person you are becoming. Something inside you refuses to settle. Something inside you understands that any bond worthy of your energy must honor your authentic nature rather than demand that you hide it. This shift alone would be significant, yet its importance expands dramatically because Venus is simultaneously reaching across the sky toward Neptune in Aries. Neptune governs the invisible dimensions of existence, the realm of intuition, spiritual connection, transcendence, and those mysterious experiences that cannot be explained through logic alone. It is associated with the dissolving of boundaries, the softening of limitations, and the removal of barriers that once appeared permanent. Think about every protective layer you created after disappointment. Think about every emotional shield built from old heartbreaks. Think about every strategy you developed to avoid vulnerability, every promise you made to yourself after being hurt. Neptune has a way of touching all of them. As Venus and Neptune move into exact harmony tonight, those structures begin losing their solidity. They do not simply crack, they gradually dissolve. This is one reason why recent emotions may have felt unusually difficult to define. That sensation lingering inside your chest has never been merely sadness. It has never been ordinary longing. It originates from a much deeper place. Long before your conscious mind became aware of these cosmic movements, another aspect of your being had already sensed them approaching. The soul often detects change long before the intellect catches up. The heart frequently recognizes an approaching turning point before the mind can find words for it. That is why so many people have felt restless without understanding why. Something within has been preparing for this moment, anticipating a shift that is only now becoming visible. Yet before the doorway fully opens, another influence steps forward to perform an essential task. Before new possibilities can arrive, outdated patterns must be disturbed. Before recognition becomes possible, old attachments must loosen their grip. Before the portal reveals its gifts, space must be created to receive them. That clearing process is already underway. Right now, Venus is forming a sextile with Uranus in Gemini, and this influence changes everything. Uranus is unlike any other planetary force. It does not move cautiously. It does not wait for perfect timing. Its nature is sudden, electric, unpredictable, and transformative. Uranus is associated with awakenings that arrive without warning, revelations that appear in an instant, and disruptions that ultimately create freedom. Positioned in Gemini, the sign connected with communication, information, conversations, learning, and unexpected exchanges, Uranus becomes especially active. Its energy moves quickly, often arriving through surprising encounters or unexpected realizations. Because of this, today may contain a moment that alters your perspective entirely. A message could arrive from someone you believed was gone from your story forever. A seemingly ordinary conversation might uncover a truth that changes how you view your relationships. A brief encounter could leave a deeper impression than logic can explain. In some cases, the most important event may occur completely within your own awareness. There may be a sudden flash of clarity that arrives like lightning across a dark sky. In a single moment, you might finally understand what your heart has been trying to tell you. You may suddenly recognize what you truly desire, or realize what you have continued accepting despite knowing it no longer aligns with your worth. You may see with startling clarity what must be released before a new chapter can begin. This is the function Uranus serves within the larger story. It acts as the catalyst. It specializes in breaking repetitive cycles and exposing patterns that have quietly shaped your choices for years. Many of these patterns become so familiar that they disappear into the background of daily life. People often do not realize how much they are being controlled by old habits until something comes along and shatters the illusion. That is exactly what Uranus is doing now. Every unexpected development connected to this alignment serves a purpose. The Soulmate Portal cannot fully reach a heart hidden behind layers of fear and disappointment. It cannot operate effectively when emotional walls remain locked in place. If the heart is guarded by years of protective armor, recognition becomes difficult. Genuine openness becomes nearly impossible. Uranus understands this reality. Its role is to remove whatever stands between you and the future that is attempting to emerge. It dismantles resistance. It clears obstacles. It creates room for something new to enter. This explains why today's energy may feel particularly intense. If emotions seem amplified, if circumstances appear unusually chaotic, if surprising developments leave you feeling unsettled yet strangely alive, do not immediately assume that something has gone wrong. These experiences are often part of a larger preparation process. They are helping establish the conditions necessary for the next stage of the journey. Because in less than 24 hours, the atmosphere changes in a profound way. The doorway opens fully. June 16th represents the moment when Venus reaches 4 degrees of Leo and forms an exact 120-degree trine with Neptune positioned at 4 degrees of Aries. Everything that has unfolded up to this point has been leading toward this alignment. In astrology, a trine is considered one of the most harmonious connections two planets can share. Unlike other aspects that generate tension or demand resolution, a trine allows energy to move naturally and effortlessly. There is no struggle. There is no resistance. The flow resembles a river finding its path toward the sea, guided by forces that require no effort to sustain. When that effortless current exists between Venus and Neptune, the emotional landscape becomes extraordinary. Venus governs attraction, affection, beauty, desire, intimacy, and the experiences that warm the human heart. Neptune governs intuition, spiritual awareness, soul recognition, and forms of love that transcend ordinary understanding. When these two influences merge in perfect harmony, something subtle yet powerful begins moving through collective experience. Emotional defenses become thinner. Masks that people have worn for years begin slipping away. The stories individuals tell themselves about who they must be start losing their hold. For a brief but potent window, truth becomes easier to perceive. You gain an enhanced ability to look beyond appearances and see the deeper essence within another person. You become capable of recognizing something more meaningful than image, status, or personality. Even more remarkable, others may begin seeing you through the same lens. This is the deeper significance behind what astrologers call a soulmate portal. It is not a promise that someone will magically appear without explanation. It is not about fantasy or illusion. It is about alignment. Your energy is being adjusted so that it resonates more clearly with connections that reflect who you are becoming rather than who you once were. For some people, this may manifest through a new encounter. If that occurs, the experience may carry an immediate sense of familiarity. Instead of feeling like the beginning of something unfamiliar, it may feel like the continuation of something ancient. Logic may struggle to explain it. Yet a quiet certainty emerges. It can feel as though a part of your spirit finally recognizes something it has been searching for all along. For others, the portal may reveal itself through a relationship that already exists. Old frustrations may begin losing their power. Long-standing resentments may soften. Misunderstandings that once seemed impossible to overcome may no longer dominate the connection. You may find yourself looking at someone you have known for years and suddenly seeing beyond the arguments, beyond the disappointments, beyond every layer of accumulated emotional noise. In that moment, something essential returns. You remember the deeper reason your paths crossed. You remember the bond that existed before fear, before misunderstanding, before life complicated what once felt simple. And as that remembrance rises back into awareness, a new chapter quietly begins unfolding, preparing the way for everything that follows next. As this extraordinary wave of energy reaches its highest point, many of you may find yourselves experiencing emotions so profound that they seem to arrive from nowhere. A simple memory, a passing thought, a familiar face, or even a quiet moment alone could suddenly unlock feelings powerful enough to bring tears to your eyes. Not because something is wrong, but because something deep within you is finally being touched. The heart has a remarkable way of recognizing truth before the mind understands it. And during this period, that truth may arrive with a level of tenderness you have not felt in a very long time. For some, the experience unfolding through this portal will not revolve around another person at all. Instead, it will direct your attention toward the relationship that has been shaping every moment of your life from the beginning, the relationship you have with yourself. There may come a moment when you look back across your journey and suddenly see your past through entirely different eyes. Instead of criticism, you may feel compassion. Instead of regret, you may feel understanding. Instead of judging the version of yourself who remained in situations that no longer served you, who stayed loyal beyond reason, who gave love to people incapable of returning it, you may finally recognize the courage that existed beneath those choices. You may realize that every decision was made by someone who was doing the best they could with the awareness they had at the time. Neptune's influence has a unique ability to soften harsh inner judgments. It does not erase history, nor does it pretend pain never happened. Rather, it allows you to release the emotional chains attached to those memories. The burden of carrying old disappointments begins to lift. The weight of self-blame starts dissolving. What remains is wisdom. What remains is freedom. This marks the spiritual summit of the month, a rare emotional and energetic peak that carries immense potential for healing, connection, and awakening. Yet as beautiful as this moment may be, it is only part of the larger story. What happens immediately afterward may prove even more important. In fact, the events that follow could determine whether the revelations of this portal become lasting transformation or simply a fleeting experience that fades with time. This is where the narrative takes an unexpected turn. On June 17th, less than 17 hours after the Soulmate Portal reaches maximum intensity, Venus forms an exact opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. While most people focus entirely on the magic of the portal itself, very few pay attention to what follows. Yet this next chapter is where the real work begins. If Neptune represents vision, possibility, and spiritual connection, Pluto represents confrontation, depth, and undeniable truth. Pluto has no interest in illusions. It does not concern itself with how inspiring an experience felt in the moment. It is interested only in what can withstand examination. It seeks authenticity beneath appearance. It searches for substance beneath emotion. When Venus and Pluto stand opposite one another, every insight, every feeling, every connection that emerged during the portal enters a period of testing. Nothing escapes scrutiny. Everything is examined more closely. In practical terms, this may unfold in surprisingly personal ways. A connection that felt effortless one day may suddenly trigger uncertainty the next. A powerful emotional breakthrough may be followed by fears you thought had already been resolved. Old insecurities could return unexpectedly. Long-buried wounds may resurface with surprising intensity. Feelings of jealousy, fear of abandonment, resistance to vulnerability, or the instinct to withdraw before getting hurt may rise from the depths of the subconscious. When this happens, it can be tempting to assume something has gone wrong. Yet that interpretation would miss the larger purpose. This is not punishment. This is refinement. The universe is not attempting to take something away from you. It is asking you to examine whether what you have discovered can survive contact with reality. One of the most difficult truths people encounter on the path of love is that meaningful connections are not sustained by emotion alone. They require honesty. They require self-awareness. They require the willingness to face uncomfortable truths without turning away. Pluto demands exactly that. If the connection you felt during the portal is genuine, if the emotional healing is authentic, if the self-forgiveness you experienced reaches beyond temporary inspiration, then Pluto's influence will not destroy it. Instead, it will strengthen it. It will take what was once a beautiful feeling and transform it into something solid. It will anchor insight into lived experience. It will turn a fleeting spiritual realization into a foundation capable of supporting lasting change. However, If what emerged during the portal was based primarily on fantasy, projection, or wishful thinking, Pluto will reveal that as well. If someone has become more attached to an idealized image than to reality itself, that discrepancy will become impossible to ignore. If spiritual language has been used to avoid confronting emotional wounds, those wounds will demand attention. Pluto exposes whatever lacks authenticity, not out of cruelty, but because growth requires truth. This is why the Soulmate Portal is about far more than opening your heart. Opening the heart is only the beginning. The greater challenge is remaining open after vulnerability appears. The greater challenge is choosing honesty when illusion feels safer. The greater challenge is standing in truth, even when truth asks something difficult of you. Those who can do this emerge from the weak transformed. Something fundamental shifts within them. Their relationship with love changes. Their relationship with themselves changes. Their relationship with the future changes. Even now, evidence of that transformation may already be appearing. Over the last several days, you may have noticed subtle changes in the way you think and feel. Decisions that once seemed obvious may now feel uncertain. Priorities that once consumed your attention may suddenly appear empty or unimportant. Meanwhile, things you previously ignored may now be pulling at your awareness with remarkable intensity. This is one of the effects of Neptune's growing influence. Neptune does not merely alter perception. It reshapes emotional understanding. It changes the lens through which you experience reality itself. As a result, your intuitive senses may feel stronger than usual. You might find yourself anticipating events before they occur. You may notice that you can sense another person's emotional state before they speak. Certain places, opportunities, conversations, or decisions may draw your attention without any logical explanation. The rational mind often struggles with experiences like these because it wants evidence before trust. Yet during this period, intuition functions differently. It speaks through feeling rather than analysis. It communicates through subtle knowing rather than detailed explanations. The important thing is not to dismiss these signals simply because they cannot be proven immediately. Your inner guidance system is operating at an unusually heightened level. What makes this influence especially powerful is the fire trine connecting Leo and Aries. This is not passive intuition. This is not vague dreaming or quiet reflection. The energy carries urgency, clarity, and momentum. It resembles a direct message rather than a gentle suggestion. It feels as though a wiser part of yourself has stepped forward, determined to guide you toward a destination that your conscious mind may not fully understand yet. There is a sense of purpose behind it, a feeling that every nudge, every insight, and every unexpected realization is attempting to point you towards something significant. The challenge is not whether guidance is available. The challenge is whether you are willing to trust it, whether you are willing to follow where it leads, whether you are willing to choose courage over familiarity. Because the events unfolding now are not isolated moments that disappear when the portal closes. They are planting seeds that will continue influencing your journey long after this week has passed. What is beginning here extends far beyond a single alignment, and the consequences of these shifts will continue unfolding throughout the remainder of 2026, carrying you toward the next stage of a transformation that has only just begun. What makes this week so important is that its influence does not disappear once the portal reaches its peak. In many ways, what you are experiencing right now is only the beginning. The emotional revelations, the unexpected encounters, the intuitive awakenings, and the shifts happening inside your heart are not isolated events. They are the opening movements of a much larger story that will continue unfolding throughout the remainder of the year. The energy set into motion during these days creates waves that travel far beyond the immediate moment, touching future decisions, future relationships, and future versions of yourself in ways that may not become obvious until much later. The first reason for this becomes visible only a few days after the portal reaches its height. On June 19th, Chiron, known throughout astrology as the wounded healer, moves into Taurus. This transition carries enormous significance on its own. Chiron's journey through Taurus begins a long process of collective healing, focused on self-worth, physical reality, personal value, and the beliefs people hold about what they deserve to receive. The timing is deeply meaningful. After experiencing the transcendent and spiritual energy associated with the portal, the focus immediately shifts toward embodiment. It is almost as if the universe is presenting a challenge. You have touched something beautiful. You have glimpsed a deeper form of love. Now can you bring that experience into everyday reality? Can you believe, not only in your mind, but in your entire being, that you are worthy of receiving the very thing your heart has been asking for? Can you allow that truth to exist within your physical life, rather than keeping it confined to dreams and possibilities? Chiron in Taurus begins teaching exactly that lesson. Then another turning point arrives. On June 21st, the summer solstice takes place as the sun enters Cancer. This marks the longest day of the year and serves as a powerful threshold between one phase and the next. The intense, passionate, and highly charged atmosphere that dominates the middle of June begins changing its tone. The energy softens. It becomes more reflective. It moves inward rather than outward. What was previously experienced as excitement now seeks meaning. What was previously revealed now asks to be protected. The message carried by the solstice is simple but profound. Whatever truth emerged during the portal, whatever realization touched your heart, whatever connection revealed itself, do not leave it exposed. Bring it into your inner world. Care for it, nourish it, allow it to develop roots. A seed cannot become a tree if it is constantly uprooted. The same principle applies to emotional and spiritual breakthroughs. They require nurturing. They require patience. They require a willingness to create space for growth. Yet the story continues. On June 29th, Mercury stations retrograde in Cancer, introducing another important phase in the unfolding sequence. Many people misunderstand Mercury retrograde, assuming it exists solely to create confusion or delays. In reality, its deeper purpose is reflection and integration. When Mercury begins moving retrograde in Cancer, attention returns to everything that occurred during the portal window. Conversations may resurface. Feelings that seemed clear may demand deeper examination. Insights received during moments of emotional intensity may return for further understanding. Rather than punishment, this period functions as an opportunity. It provides space to process experiences that may have unfolded too quickly to fully comprehend at the time. It invites review, reflection, and emotional digestion. Looking at the entire structure together reveals something remarkable. First comes the catalyst. Then comes the portal. After that arrives the test. Following the test comes grounding. Finally, review and integration complete the cycle. None of it is random. Each event builds upon the previous one. Together they create a complete spiritual progression, a sequence designed to guide transformation from inspiration into reality. And perhaps the most surprising aspect of this process is that before it gives something new, it may first remove something old. This is the part many people resist. Yet, it is also one of the most important. As your energy changes, relationships that no longer resonate with who you are becoming may begin revealing their instability. Friendships that have already been drifting apart could finally reach their natural conclusion. Connections sustained by habit rather than genuine affection may struggle to continue. Partnerships that have been surviving on routine instead of authentic emotional presence may encounter a decisive crossroads. If this happens, it is easy to interpret the experience as loss. But from a broader perspective, something else may be occurring. Space is being created. The portal cannot fully introduce new opportunities while every corner of your life remains occupied by what no longer belongs there. Imagine trying to receive a gift while refusing to let go of what you've already outgrown. Eventually, something must be released. For some individuals, unexpected endings may become part of this week's story. Not because they failed, not because they made mistakes, but because certain chapters have reached completion. When that occurs, the instinct may be to hold on tighter, to chase, to convince, to resist. Yet the wiser response may be surrender. If your soul has already begun letting go, forcing something to remain often prolongs discomfort rather than preventing it. Trust becomes essential. The temporary emptiness that follows a release is not evidence that something valuable has been lost forever. It is evidence that room is being prepared for something more aligned with who you are becoming. And once that clearing process is complete, new possibilities often arrive far sooner than expected. There is another reason this message matters. Out of countless distractions competing for your attention, something led you here. Something encouraged you to stay and continue listening. Perhaps you cannot fully explain why. Perhaps it felt like simple curiosity at first. Yet sometimes, the deepest forms of recognition occur before conscious understanding arrives. The same inner pull that kept drawing your attention toward this message is closely connected to the energy being amplified by the portal itself. It is an internal compass, a subtle guidance system that often knows where you are headed before your conscious mind catches up. Many people will move through this week without recognizing what is taking place. They may feel emotional without understanding why. They may experience vivid dreams, unexpected memories, or unusual restlessness, and dismiss it as coincidence. They may distract themselves from the signals emerging within. They may never pause long enough to notice the invitation being offered. But if you have followed this journey to this point, chances are you have already sensed that something meaningful is happening beneath the surface. That awareness matters. It suggests readiness. It suggests openness. It suggests that a part of you has already begun responding to the changes unfolding around you. So, as the trine reaches perfection tonight, consider giving yourself a brief moment of stillness. Step away from distractions. Close your eyes. Place your hand over your heart and ask a single question. What do I truly want? Not what seems practical. Not what feels safest. Not what others expect from you. Ask what your deepest self genuinely longs for. Ask what desire continues returning, no matter how many times you attempt to ignore it. During this portal, whatever answer rises naturally from within deserves your attention. That answer carries significance because it reflects a truth that may have been waiting a very long time to be acknowledged. The doorway stands open now. The energy is present. The opportunity exists. The only remaining question is what you are willing to welcome into your life as you step forward into the next chapter. And before we close, thank you for spending this time here. Your presence, your attention, and your willingness to explore these ideas mean more than you know. If this message resonated with you, and you would like to continue exploring future insights and astrological guidance together, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps this community grow and allows more people to discover these conversations. Feel free to share your experiences, reflections, or personal insights in the comments below. Until our next journey together, take care of yourself, trust the wisdom emerging from within, and stay connected for more meaningful explorations ahead.